Elizabeth ma'am, can you share PowerPoint once again? Elizabeth ma'am, can you share PowerPoint once again? Change here, madam. Slideshow.
Next slide ഇടാവോ madam? Elizabeth madam, please unmute.
Okay, sir.
മാം ഒരു 3-4 ഒന്ന് അടുപ്പിച്ച് മാറ്റാവോ?
Okay.
പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് മാറ്റണേ സ്ലൈഡ് നമ്പർ.
Okay, slide number 1.
Science and truth, right?
3, yeah. 4, 5.
Okay.
6.
ഡിലേ ഉണ്ടല്ലേ ഫെൽസേ?
6th slide is dissemination of scientific knowledge, right? Functions of the scientific journal.
No, sir.
Which one? Which slide?
Yeah.
Cover of the first volume.
Functions of the scientific journal.
Now it's cover of the first volume of Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, right?
No, sir. The previous slide was that.
ഡിലേ ഉണ്ട്. എലിസബത്ത് മാഡം,
Yes.
ഫെൽസ് കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം നമ്മൾ ചെയ്ത സെറ്റിംഗ്സ് ഇല്ലേ? ഒന്ന് ചെയ്യ. സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ
ഏതായിരുന്നു?
ടോപ്പിൽ സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ ഇല്ലേ മിസ്സേ?
ഉണ്ട്.
ഒന്ന് ഓപ്പൺ ചെയ്യേ.
എക്സിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാവോ? ഫുൾ സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ മോഡ് എക്സിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാവോ? Custom slideshow, right?
സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോയിൽ ഏതാ എടുക്കണ്ടത് സാറേ?
Custom slideshow.
എടുത്തു.
ഓപ്പൺ ആവുന്നില്ലല്ലോ.
അത് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഫെൽസെ സെറ്റപ്പ് സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ ആയിരിക്കും ഫെൽസെ.
സെറ്റപ്പ് സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ. ഓക്കെ.
അത് ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് സെറ്റപ്പ് സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ എടുത്ത് അതിനകത്ത് മാനേജ് ടൈം എന്നുള്ളൊരു ഓപ്ഷൻ ഉണ്ട്. മാനുവലി ആക്കാത്. അഡ്വാൻസ് സ്ലൈഡ്സ് എന്നുള്ളത് മാനുവലി ആക്കുക. സെറ്റ് ചെയ്യും. ഇനി മിസ് സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ ഇട്ടിട്ട് ഒന്ന് സ്ലൈഡ് ചേഞ്ച് ചെയ്തേ.
സ്റ്റാർട്ടിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയാട്ടോ. ഫസ്റ്റ് സ്ലൈഡ്
സയൻസ് ആൻഡ് ട്രൂത്ത് ആണോ?
സെക്കൻഡ്
ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ സെമിനാർ.
ഇപ്പൊ സെക്കൻഡ് സ്ലൈഡ് സാറേ. താങ്ക് യു ഫോർ ദ ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി.
നെക്സ്റ്റ് സ്ലൈഡ്.
സയൻസ് ആൻഡ് ട്രൂത്ത് തേർഡ് സ്ലൈഡ്.
ഓക്കെ.
ഡിസമിനേഷൻ ഫോർത്ത് സ്ലൈഡ്.
ഓക്കെ. ചെറിയൊരു ഡിലേ ഉണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ അത് കുഴപ്പമുണ്ടല്ലോ, സാറ് ഫോണിൽ നിന്നാണ് പ്രസന്റേഷൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത്.
കുഴപ്പമില്ല,
വോയിസ് മാത്രമേ ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ. ഇപ്പൊ കവർ ഓഫ് ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് വോളി അല്ലേ?
അതെ.
ഓക്കെ. ഇറ്റ്സ് ഓക്കെ. Shall we start? Yes.
Start.
Sir. Untitled sir.
Just a minute. Hello.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
Again, sir, I've sent the YouTube link also to your WhatsApp number.
Yeah, that we'll forget it. We'll do it later. No problem. Now
Okay,
it's too late. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, it's almost ready. Shall we start, sir?
Sure. Yeah, I am ready.
Okay. Ebisa.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 6th day of who will be delivering his ideas on the peer reviewing concept. Professor Dr. M.K. Unnikrishnan completed B.Pharm from BITS Pilani in 1978 and PhD from Mangalore University in 1997. He currently teaches pharmacotherapeutics, pharmacology, and drug discovery. He has guided over 12 PhD students and has published about 200 articles in various peer-reviewed journals. He has 1,539 corpus citations with H-index 21 and 3,419 Google Scholar citations with H-index 31. So major areas of interest are drug discovery, evolution, cognition, public health, and education. He presently holds 4 patents in his field. His most recent works in collaboration with Boston University, USA, titled Challenges Constraining Availability and Affordability of Insulin in Bengaluru region of Karnataka, Evidence from a Mixed Method Study, published in BMC Journal of Pharmaceutical Policy and Practice, got wide media attention. Sir is a member of the Society of Evolutionary Medicine and Public Health USA and publishes in his nascent discipline. He is also an editorial board member of Scientific Reports, a Nature Group publication. Sir's articles published in the Economic and Political Weekly, Health Policy and Planning, etc., discuss various contemporary socio-political problems in Sir is presently Professor of Pharmacology and Principal, National College of Pharmacy, Kozhikode, Kerala. We welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you see the slides? I hope all of you can. Thank you, Dr. Ansi, for the introduction, and Dr. Fels, Dr. Dhanish, and all my friends whom I've had interaction with in the previous occasion of my visit. Let me first, make a confession about the very poor connectivity here. If there is a power failure, I am vulnerable to, a small break. So please be aware of this and don't go away, because it will resume soon. Because I am not in my home, I am at my daughter's place where the apartment is connected to the generator. So there's a switch on lag when there's a power failure. Okay, now can I have the second slide, please? Yes. So first of all, let me thank you for the opportunity. First of all, the organizers, all those who have already, taken great care to see that everything goes smoothly. Thank you very much. Dr. Yogendra Nayak is my student who has been trained in bibliometry, scientometry, etc. And he's an expert in this area. He is my PhD student, is now in Manipal. He's heading a center on research. He has, sent his valuable inputs to this lecture. My special thanks to Dr. Akash for technical support, these slides and those various attachments and things like that. A lot of papers he sends me. I gratefully thank his offers. And all viewers for spending their time and taking their interest to listen to this lecture. Thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah, please don't think science is always truth. Is that okay? So science does not claim to be infallible. There is a possibility of things going wrong in science. Recently, I don't know, you might have heard of the two famous retractions. Lancet and NEJM retracted 2 papers on chloroquine because they went wrong, because of some misleading information they got from Surgisphere. I think you're aware of this. So science is not always the truth, but science is honest inquiry, and they're ready to own up mistakes. That's why there's a retraction. When something goes wrong, they immediately say, yes, we have gone wrong, and we correct. Science is falsifiable. That's the difference between science and dogma. So you can disprove somebody. Science is okay with any kind of falsifiability. In fact, Einstein proved Newton wrong when he said that when the velocity is close to the speed of light, the mechanics of Newton will not work. That doesn't mean Newton is wrong. Newton is wrong in situations where the speed of an object is close to that of light, but he's okay in normal situations. William Overton ruled against the creationism. Teaching creationism as a part of science was considered, was being contested as a right, and which is William Overton who overruled that in a judgment, because he said creationism is not falsifiable, it's dogma. Nobody can challenge a biblical fact. It does not become science until it is falsifiable. That's the definition of science. So science is essentially something that can go wrong. That's the reason why we have to be constantly vigilant about what science is coming out into the public domain. I hope all of you can hear me. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, scientific knowledge has to be disseminated. It's not science unless there is some method to communicate what has been found. So that's the reason why science cannot be separated from the journals that publish science. So scientific journals are generally quite old. The idea is quite old, but the proliferation is recent. The number of scientific journals today is just too much. It wasn't so many in those days. Nature, the first issue of Nature was published on 4th November 1869. You can see the cover on the journal cover. Just a month after Gandhi was born. Gandhi was born on 2nd October 1969. And the first issue of Nature came just a month after Gandhi was born. Generally, scientific journals are restricted to a subject, a topic. But Nature is a multidisciplinary. There are some selective journals like Science, Nature, etc., PLOS One. They're multidisciplinary. You can have subjects ranging from maths to molecular biology. So such kind of a range is possible in some journals. It's unique. Each journal is unique. And it's published indefinitely. Suppose you start a journal, you're supposed to publish it forever. And it's archived indefinitely. If you publish a journal, it has to be preserved. It has to be indexed. It has to be archived. It is the systematic preservation of science that has allowed it to progress to what we have today as a global, institution. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, if you look at the philosophical transactions of the Royal Society, the issue in 1965, this is among the first journals to ever appear in this world. So it's 1666, means it's very, very old, much older than Nature, which you saw in the previous slide. Nature is a familiar journal to you, but Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society is not perhaps a very familiar journal. But this is to be remembered as one of the earliest attempts at recording science and preserving scientific breakthroughs. Next slide, please. Now, there is a function. The scientific journal has many functions. The first function is it is registration of a certain discovery or an invention with a date stamped. You're supposed to tell when it happened and declare the provenance. Provenance is the origin, which includes the authorship and the place of work. Who did this? Where was it done? Which institution was the affiliating institution for this laboratory which discovered or invented this material? These things are important. That's part of the registration. So every scientific journal is supposed to record the time, the place, and the person responsible for that particular breakthrough. And the next thing is certification. There comes your peer review. The certification is actually a process where you declare that this is science, this has a valid quality which is compatible with the principles of scientific thinking. Before the 20th century, mid 20th century, peer review was not always necessary because knowledge hadn't exploded to such a level. Everybody could judge by a cursory look whether something was authentic or fraudulent. But that is not the possible situation today. A person does not understand science because of the multiple specializations. If you're not in that very domain, you will not understand what it means. You have already got to know about it. A person from the pharmacology department is hardly competent to evaluate a paper in pharmaceutics. You would have all experienced that, isn't it? So there's the third function is dissemination and archiving. As I mentioned, science is not science until it is explained to somebody. It is communicated and archived. It is preserved as well as disseminated. In fact, this is where India lost. India had no systems for disseminating and archiving our own ideas. India was not backward in science. India had very advanced science long ago, but we never preserved it. We never disseminated it in print and shared the content. That's why we lost. So it's important to understand that sharing is important, archiving is important for preserving science, and certification, authentication of what work there is extremely important and critical for validation of what was published or what is published. All the above were introduced at the inception of the Journal of the Philosophical Transactions. And these things can be seen in letters which exchanged between Robert Boyle, you might have heard of Boyle's Law, and Oldenburg. So they're very, very old and still stand valid. Next slide, please. The peer review, as I said, is the central thing about science. In the previous slide, I said certification of science comes from peer review. The validation of anything comes from peer review. So if it is not validated, it's not science. So peer review is extremely important, especially today, because science is hard to understand because of the fragmentation in science. The molecular biologist will not understand a mathematician. An ENT physician will not understand an ophthalmologist. So there is so much of fragmentation that an expert, a peer, I hope you understand the meaning of peer. Peer in English means an equal, a person who's equal in knowledge terms. He's called a peer. A peer review is very recent in a way because peer review was not necessary. Common sense and a certain amount of learning was enough to understand whether science was valid. Until the end of the 19th century, peer review was performed directly by the editor-in-chief of or the editorial committee of a journal. So journal could directly look at a paper and understand its value and authenticity. That is not the possible situation today. In the earlier 20th century, the burden of proof was generally on the opponents rather than the proponents of new idea. So if you propose a new idea, if somebody objected to it, it is his business to say that you are wrong and why you are wrong. It's not the case today. Today, the person who propounds that new idea is expected to explain why he is right and what proof there is to explain the phenomenon. So external peer review is what really started the new age of science. So when you have an external peer review, the journal consults members outside the editorial board who's not directly connected to the running of the journal, but are in the same discipline as where these journals publish. So Nature started formal peer reviews only in 1967. It's just 53 years back. So before that, the internal peer review was sufficient. External peer review was not truly required because of the small volume of information that was available in the world. Nature started in 1967, but today every journal has its peer review system. Every journal should have its peer review system. If it fails, you'll see what happens. The role of the referee is advisory. The referees cannot veto. The editorial board has the veto function. Regardless of what the referees say, the editor can reject or accept the paper. But generally, the referees are seriously taken into consideration before making a decision. Referees should inform the editor of any conflict of interest. I'll explain what a conflict of interest is in more detail later. For the present, if you understand, you should understand it as a conflict of interest is something that involves the referee in in a direct interest for getting it published or preventing its publication. Now, I'll give you an example. Suppose I am working on a vaccine, a COVID vaccine. Okay, I am one of the very few people in India working on COVID vaccine. And suppose Dhanish is also a competitor, let's say. And Dhanish sends a paper on a COVID vaccine which he has developed in his own place. He sends it for publication, and the referee is myself. The journal sends it to me. So when I see the paper by Dhanish, my competitor, on a COVID vaccine, I am myself trying to publish my vaccine from here, from my college, and I see some competitor trying to outdo me, race against me, and make a name before I do. So I'll say Danish has written something which is untenable. So I reject his paper. So I can overcome the obstacle and become the first person to publish. Such in conflicts of interest. So that is when the author's interest is in conflict with the referee's interest for some reason, then you have a conflict of interest. So there is a reason to see that conflict of interest is prevented in any peer review system. Next slide, please. I hope I made it clear. A scientific paper is not an opinion of the author. It's not an opinion. That's the reason why peer review is important. Science deals with facts and figures and not just opinions. Opinions may be a part of the fact, but it's not dominantly fact driven. It's not dominantly opinion driven, it's fact driven. That's the why there must be a stamp of authenticity in anything that's published as science. And it's possible only if the subject expert is there to vet the paper. I hope you understand by the meaning of the word vet. Vet is somebody, some expert who vets the paper is also responsible for scrutinizing the data, checking for its validity, looking for errors, statistical misappropriations, language mistakes, attributional mistakes, referencing systems. Every aspect of the paper must be carefully checked before it is passed for publication. That's what the peer review does. So the referee is the linchpin. He's the pivotal role in science. He's the one who certifies science. As I mentioned to you, registration, certification, the second function, and next is archiving and preservation, dissemination. So the central purpose of certification of anything published in science is by the peer referee, the peer reviewer. That's why it is so important. It's in fact the most important part of any publication system is the peer review. In fact, the peer reviewer helps to publish papers which are worth publishing. And he publishes it or allows it to be published only if it describes and explains research done in the proper way, with the proper methods. No mysticism there. Everything must be reproducible by somebody else. Then it becomes science. It's not a personal opinion, as I mentioned. And Royal Society first introduced peer review in Philosophical Transaction in 1752. So long ago. The next slide, please. So the problems of science is understood only by scientists. That's the biggest problem of science. A molecular biologist cannot understand what a person is doing in surgery. Both of them may be involved with the human body, but still the surgeon looks at the body very differently from the molecular biologist. A geneticist may not be able to understand an ophthalmologist. An ophthalmologist will not understand an orthopedic specialist. So science is fragmented and it's extremely domain specific. Each domain has a specific amount of expertise which is required. A fragmentation of science is extreme today. It's fragmented to many subdivisions. That's also the reason why there are so many journals today. 1 million papers are published every year. That's the kind of publication output every year that the world is looking at. And non-experts will not know if the papers can be accepted as truth because he's not in the field. Suddenly, suppose somebody publishes a paper saying that the vaccine is ready for COVID. Unless there is an expert to explain to us whether it's a fraudulent claim or whether it's genuine, how is the public going to take it? So that's why spurious medical research based on spurious publications can be a big hazard to the community. It can endanger the community and exploit the gullible people. And that's what is happening to an extent because peer review is not able to perform its function fully. That's the reason why quacks can prevail in such a system. Next one, please. So peer review, there are many stakeholders in peer review. It's important to understand them. Editors of the peer review, Now, editors of the scholarly journals ensure proper peer review by engaging all the stakeholders. That is, he engages the reviewers. Reviewers need to know the selection policies and procedures. It's a business of the editor to explain it to them. The editor is supposed to explain the, you know, the importance of the journal, its scope and policies, and the reviewers must be selected so that they understand the work that is being reported. And the reviewers can make a difference to the existing body of knowledge only if these conditions are valid. And the journal authority, the publisher, should sensitize reviewers about regulations. The editors must be so appointed that the purpose of science is not defeated by fraudulent publications. This is essential if you want science to progress. You'll see how things go wrong when peer review does not function properly. In fact, it's one of the greatest threats to science, and I'll explain why. Next one, please. Yeah, there are three types of peer review. The traditional type, and which is again further divided into single blind and double blind. And the third is open review, which is emerging, not yet fully in place. The traditional systems are dominantly single blind and double blind. Now, these are popular with science and humanities journals all over the world. And the single blind system is such that the authors do not know who has refereed, but the referees know the authors. Suppose I get a paper from, which has been sent by Fells for review. Fells will not know that I am reviewing it. That's a difference. I will know who has written the paper. So the advantage there is that I can write what I feel. I mean, provided I am not vindictive, I give a fair judgment without fear about what will happen to me if I say something wrong. It could be a paper for which is published by, submitted by my close friend. So without hurting my friend, the peer review can still express concerns on the value of his judgment, his experimentation, his collation of results, his interpretation of the figures and the tables. All this can be challenged individually, and that's how you you make the journal valuable and trusted. So a single blind peer review can give credence to the value judgment next of the journal. And the double blind review is such that both the authors and the referees do not know each other. That is, I don't know whose paper has been sent to me. I just get a paper with only the title, nothing about the place where it's come from. The title of the paper and the content of the paper are with me. I have no idea who has sent it to me, who has written the paper. I know this journal has sent it to me and I am asked to review it. I review it based on what facts and figures I see in the paper, based on nothing else. There's no judgment playing upon my conscience about who has written this, what's his position in science, what's his position in society, his political influence. Nothing bothers me. So I tend to give a very honest picture about my impressions. That is double blind. It's completely anonymous both ways, and neither authors nor referees know each other. So you can probably expect a more frank and candid account in such in such reviews. Open reviews are just emerging, in which actually what you do is it's popular with some open access publishing. You will understand what open access publishing and all is in very short time. I'll be explaining this to you. Here, the authors, reviewers' identities are revealed to each other. The authors know, the reviewers know who they are talking about. So, and it's also open to the public to an extent. So, suppose I am reviewing a paper by, let's say, Dr. Elizabeth, and Elizabeth knows that I am reviewing it, and I know that I'm reviewing Dr. Elizabeth's paper. And the readers of the journal also know who is who is reviewing this paper. Next slide, please. So the traditional peer review, the single blind peer review is, I already explained this to you, the reviewer is free to give his free opinion without worry about somebody thinking bad about him. Sometimes, you get a paper to review when the author is your teacher, let's say, or a very senior person in your own department. It might come to you for review, or at least in a neighboring institution, it can come to you. You feel very delicate rejecting the paper, even if you find it invalid. The reason is that you respect that gentleman for something else, some other reason. He's senior to you, he's probably your father-in-law or something like that. So all these issues do not, and this should not come in the way of science being expressed. Somebody's father-in-law is not supposed to, take control of science. The relations should not overcome the facts of science. So single blind peer review has this advantage, and it elicits an unbiased review of reports. Next one, please. And next one. There are problems. It's not that peer review is always a 100% foolproof method. There is possibility of bias. Now, one major reason for bias is the country of origin, the place, the name. Oh, this is from some unknown country in Africa, some crazy university. I don't think I can trust it. This is the impression, because Africa is not very advanced in science. Or somebody from USA might think, oh, this paper has come from India. Oh God, I've not even heard of this university. It's not from Indian Institute of Science or the IIT. I cannot believe this fellow. This fellow must be talking something which is, challengeable. So the language also might be inferior. Somebody might have expressed something of great value in a poor language. So that's again taken to be suspect, because the language does have a great influence on the manner of communication and the credibility of communication. The location plays a role. An unknown city, an unknown person, an unknown surname, an unknown geographical location and university, all this can play havoc. I have seen these things happening long ago, of course. It's not so much today. India has gained a lot in terms of reputation. And yet these prejudices remain in pockets because it's not possible to get rid of prejudices. In fact, I've heard somebody say that the one way of getting something published uh, you know, in a foreign journalist to say something bad about our country. Any bad news about our country is instantly published. So in fact, when you read the news columns in good journals abroad, published from abroad, very frequently the bad news from India is featured more often with greater probably coverage. That's probably because we also have a reputation of not doing good science. So these prejudices are probably founded on the past history of our performance. So all this you must take into account instead of blaming each other. We should understand. But remember, it's all part of this peer review system, which needs to be reformed and guided to a level of, let's say, perfection wherever possible. And the peer review does not sometimes encourage innovative methods. Now, I'll give you an example. Suppose you develop a very, very novel, completely unknown method, a new reagent, let's say for complex or matrix titration, that nobody has heard about. You do a titration using this, get a very good result and send this for publication. Somebody who is not familiar with this, he'll say, hey, what this guy is trying to say, I'm not going to trust this guy. This fellow must be bluffing. And he'll be rejected. So very new, completely unknown systems, unknown methods, if you have used, it will probably, get rejected. In fact, I've heard that the PCR, the very famous PCR, polymerase chain reaction, it was published as for the first time, it was presented as an abstract in some conference. Nobody looked at it. But today, there's a PCR in every hospital now doing your COVID tests. So just remember that very uncommon, very unusual, very surprising kind of things are sometimes sidelined quite for the beginning until its value is understood. Expensive It is because peer review requires to contact people, highly paid people, and they need to sacrifice a lot of their time. When you're sending a paper to a peer review, you're probably approaching a very reputed man who's earning a lot of salary. So if he has to spend every hour of his time is worth so many dollars or so much rupees, so it is expensive. The journal has to keep track. He has to wait for this referee to return with a proper report. So there's a time lag. That time costs money. So peer review is expensive. And there's also a possible delay. Sometimes people don't answer the peer review quickly. They just keep it somewhere, forget about it. They're all busy people. The problem is that peer reviews are often undertaken by senior people with plenty of experience. You don't get peer reviews, requests for peer reviews when you are a young, upcoming researcher. So what happens is that the senior people don't want to waste much time on peer review. They've got their own work to do. They sometimes think it's a punishment to do a peer review. They do it out of favor probably and some kind of a sense of duty probably because they know that their own paper is required to be peer reviewed. So do it as a quid pro quo. So that's all. But not many are very seriously involved in peer review with their heart. And the anonymity also sometimes takes a toll because it allows the single blind peer reviewers to make very harsh comments, unduly harsh. It's not required to be so harsh. And reject papers without a proper explanation. I've seen this happen to my own self. In fact, when somebody does not fancy your idea, he can quickly say, no, this doesn't seem okay. And your paper is rejected because the editor has no option but to believe you because the editor himself is not probably an expert in the area that has been given to me for reviewing. So single blind peer review helps reviewer to shoulder, helps reviewer to not shoulder the complete responsibility. You understand? So these are the issues. Next one, please. Difficult to suppress author identity. Now, there is a problem. You say that there is a double-blind review and things like that where the identities are concealed on both sides. No, that is not very easy. Now, suppose I get a paper in which I'm familiar with the situation in a certain college. Oh, they have an MS, LCMS. So this is most likely for Manipal, I say. Okay. This institution is not likely. Looking at the previous papers, oh, he has quoted papers from Manipal. So he must be a Manipal guy. So I can guess who is possibly the one who has submitted this paper. And the blinding does not always work. The double blinding does not always work. And authors can suggest reviewers. This is a new thing. The authors, I am sending a paper, I send the referees, I suggest to referees who are very good friends of mine. It's an unhealthy practice and it can hurt peer review because these friends of mine, or I suggest two of my students who are scared of me. So, and they give me a good report. So this is the way how peer review gets screwed up. The double blind system, it can even be worse than that. The anonymous reviewer can lift your ideas and publish it as his own paper. I find something very fascinating in a paper which has come for review. I take it out, I reject this guy's paper, put that paper, that idea in my own paper, and I send it. He doesn't know who I am. I don't know who he is. We are blind to each other. The journal probably does not check all the papers and find out who has done this kind of mischief. So it remains completely unknown. The poor fellow who has thought of something new has lost an opportunity because I have stolen as a referee that particular idea and publish it as my own. So these things do happen rarely, of course. Scientists are generally honest, but those who are not honest can do great harm. So there's no peer review which is foolproof, and errors can pass unnoticed. Questionable validity and efficacy of the peer review is well known and widely discussed. Conservative anonymous referees may reject important contributions with impunity. You can't punish a peer reviewer for stating something wrong. There's no mechanism to punish. You can punish the author by blacklisting him and things like that. But the peer reviewer, except that you may not send any more papers to him, there's no system yet to say that this guy has done mischief in peer review. It may be it may not be dishonest by intention. It may be an accident. So you always give benefit of doubt to the peer review, and he can escape with impunity. And these situations actually do a lot of harm to the validity of peer review, which everybody takes for granted. Next slide, please. Now, there's an emerging system called open peer review. This is trying to replace the older systems which have got these faults in it. The OPR is actually a very, very interesting departure. It's introduced by some new journals. Here, the authors, reviewers, and readers are engaging in a debate on a paper. The reviewers and authors know each other. Even the public sometimes knows. And the phase of vetting is open to any reviewer. Anybody can send his comments. Actually, when the paper is sent for publication, it's first displayed on the website, and some referees are chosen to make comments. You can also add your own comment to that. So it's a completely transparent, completely transparent and open method. And the reviews which are posted online can tag to the article, so everybody can throw his arguments forward. Next one, please. So OPR is supposed to be transparent. It avoids controversies. The submitted manuscript is available on the website, and the reviewers and readers can together comment. They are welcome. And the readers' comments are considered alongside the peer reviews solicited from experts. So all documents are public. Reviewers' reports, the author's responses, name of the reviewers, editors, public commentary on the published or pre-publication articles, everything is available on the net. So this is the answer to the problems in peer review, and this is picking up now. You might have heard of the faculty 1,000 journals. Now, I'll be talking about it later. Next one, please. Yeah, here is an example of the faculty 1,000 journal. Okay, this is a new one. Here, what happens? The author submits the paper. The paper is published with all the associate data on the website. The open peer review begins. The users' comments, open referees' reports, and all comments published beside the paper. Author revises the paper and resubmits. So all this happens in public view. The revision, the commenting, the initial submission, everything is available. So the honesty of this system is probably going to make this much more popular in future. Let's come and let's wait and watch. That's all I can say. It's not very popular now. Next one, please. OPR, the types of it's based on the timing, pre-publication review. Some of the papers are, before the formal publication, the OPR is allowed. Sometimes synchronous, the same time as the publication, restricted to some domains like literature and so on. Post-publication is after a paper is published, they are open for comments. F1000, bioarchive, etc. is after publication. But then after publication means they present it straight away. So you have an option to submit it. Bioarchive, etc. They're all, sometimes the papers are brilliant. I have read some very brilliant papers on bioarchive. I'm not very familiar with their faculty 1,000, but I have read some brilliant articles on bioarchive. Okay, next one. Now, Ross-Hellauer lists 7 traits of OPR: the open identities, open reports, open participation, open interaction, open pre-review manuscripts, open final version, and open commenting and open platforms. So this is, you can read this paper. It's a good paper, Annals of Library and Information Studies by Shiladitya Jana. It gives a very good approach to what's happening today. It gives a complete history. Next one, please. Now, all this, I have been talking about the ideal situations. What should happen? But remember, all that should happen does not happen. A lot of things go wrong. And I'm telling you how things go wrong because it is important to know how things go wrong if you want to know how to set it right. So, faking a peer review is an important aspect of understanding the peer review. Springer retracted 64 articles in 10 journals because of fake reviews. The reviewer email addresses were fake. In fact, there's a story about a South Korean researcher, Hyun Moon. What he did was he manipulated the peer review with fake email addresses. He reviewed his own papers. 250 of his articles were retracted. Dishonest researchers manipulate the reviews. How do they do that? They create a fake profile for noted professors with fake emails. You understand? So, and they use what is called a search engine optimization technique to improve the popularity of fake profiles. So you create an artificial importance for these profiles, which are fake. So it is attributed to a big man. And when you do a search, you'll see this wrong profile coming up first. So you'll get hold of the wrong email address. And this email address is registered with the person who created the fake. So editors get fake profiles and searching for reviewers suggested by the authors, and this becomes a big fraud. So because the author himself can review his own paper, you can imagine how much of a hazard it is. Next one, please. Now, there's another problem which is now being identified. It's not so bad as before. Now, I told you there's a conflict of interest if you give credit for doing a peer review, isn't it? If I offer money for peer review, then what will happen? Then people will be offered more money for accepting a paper or rejecting a paper, depending on the case. You reject that guy's paper and I'll give you so much money. So some people might volunteer to do peer review just to, get money. Now, there is another kind of reward that's coming, not just in money, but in terms of credits by Publons. Clarivate Analytics owns this Publons, and they are giving credit for peer reviews. But unfortunately, the rewards are based on the quantity of peer reviews, not the quality of peer reviews, because it's not easy to measure quality. Quantity is easy to measure. How many papers has he reviewed? Numbers are easy to count. The quality is a more difficult estimate. So there's no transparency in that. So such kind of rewards can create a spurious importance to certain people, and people who want this spurious importance will acquire it by conducting more and more reviews. And the more reviews you do, the more time you spend, and there'll be more pressure on you to perform peer review without adequate attention. So certain things might escape your peer review reports that will do harm to the way that science is published. Next one, please. There are many symptoms of mistakes in peer review. Now, you just take the manuscripts. I have myself found, I send it to a journal, they refuse it. I send it to another journal, and it's published with a lot of citations. So what did the journal in the beginning do? Why did they reject it if the second journal could publish it and get so many citations? So a rejected manuscript published elsewhere gets more citations than anticipated by the original journal. That means something has gone wrong with the peer review. The judgment has gone wrong. And in the same way, the rejected manuscript published in a more prestigious journal can also give an impression of a poor review, isn't it? Suppose I send it to a poor journal and they reject it, and I send it to a much bigger journal. It just happened in my own situation. I have sent papers to very average journals, which have rejected it. I have improved it and sent it to much bigger journals, and they have accepted it. But sometimes you can give credit to the peer review because the local rejection is probably accompanied by a lot of advice, which helped me to publish it in the better journal. So the disagreement between journals, two reviewers, is a common feature. Remember that. Not always the reviewers agree with each other. Some peer reviewers agree, some don't. So there's a problem of opinion playing a role here. Next one, please. Yeah. So the investigating peer review, there's a very famous paper which you all must read by John Bohannon, which appeared 2013. It's very old, but the situation is not very different. What he did was he did a crazy thing. What he did was he created a completely artificial paper. It was just not there. He just created it. He gave a fictitious name to both the author as well as the institution from where the publication was issued. Okarafu Kobanj of Wasim Institute of Medicine sent 304 versions of a wonder drug paper to open access journals. More than 50% journals accepted the paper. The complete paper was bogus, created out of imagination. Journal of Natural Pharmaceuticals accepted it in 51 days. Editor-in-chief Ilke Orhan, professor of pharmacy at the Eastern Mediterranean University in Cyprus, he asked only for small changes, superficial. He said, you need a different format and a different, a little longer abstract, and never mention anything about the scientific content. He said, nothing is wrong. The science is okay. You do this. But you know, the paper had some very fundamental flaws. The methods were wrong. The graphs were wrong. If you want the details, please read the paper. Okay, I don't have much time to go into the details. But remember, the whole paper was bluff. And it was written in a very unconvincing manner. Even a cursory reading could have revealed the problems in the paper. But with all this, it went as a very, very feasible alternative. Okay, next one, please. Now, this is primarily because today we have a lot of fake online journals who are crazy to get anything published because they get money. Publication charges, page rate, you know, for the publication, the journals charge huge money. Some of the journals charge thousands of dollars for every paper. Now, there are two models in publication of science. One is the author pays to publish, the reader pays to read. Okay. Now, the reader pays to read was the old system. Now it is the author pays to publish. See, publication is expensive because of the the human power involved in it, and the amount of institutional investments in it. So you need to somehow make money, otherwise it's not a viable option. So what happens is these fake journals are doing this with the hunger for publication in mind. So they just offer a lot of free papers without any proper review because there's money in it. The fake journals are responsible for a lot of fake reviews. The fake journals obscure the identity and location of the journal's editors. So now when you have a fake journal, it's very difficult to know where this journal is coming from. Who is the real editor? The financial dealings are kept hidden. The IP address and the traces of emails of journal editors betray their locations. You can take them to some poor country somewhere. Invoices for publication fees reveal bank accounts in developing world. Many are in India. Acceptance and rejections of peer review betray the fraud in it. Because many, many frivolous papers are published, as you have seen now, that the Okara, or that was that paper by Okara. Next one, please. Now, when there was an investigation, Bohenon did this investigation. Journal of Natural Pharmaceutical describes itself a peer-reviewed journal aiming to communicate high-quality research articles, short communications, and reviews in natural products with desired pharmacological activities. This is a proclamation on the website. And the editors and advisory boards are pharma professors at universities around the world. It's one of more than 270 journals by Mednow, okay, and it's based in Mumbai, one of the largest open access publishers. Mednow's website claims more than 2 million articles are downloaded monthly. So you can imagine the amount of influence they have. And Wolters Kluwer, Netherlands, bought Mednow. So you can quite understand the financial implications of publication of science. So remember, it's a big, big industry today. Publication industry in science is also responsible for the fraud because of the money in it. Now, they bought Mednow. Wolters Kluwer bought Mednow, and the Wolters Kluwer is today among the leading purveyors of medical information with an annual revenue of 5 billion. So $5 billion is such a huge amount of money. Around 40,000 crores per year is the amount of revenue they have. So you can quite imagine the amount of money as just one of the many, many publishers. So you can just understand the quantity of money that has changed hands in the publication industry of just science. Next one, please. So when this Bohennon's investigation was proceeding, the managing editor of this Journal of Natural Pharmaceuticals made an apology, said, we will shut down the journal by the end of the year, and I'm sorry. Next one. That's all. And next one. The Okarafu-Kobandi's manuscript was also accepted by Sage and Elsevier journals. You know about Sage and Elsevier. They're very prestigious. Even prestigious Kobe University journals accepted. Scholarly society journals accepted. And also by journals where the subject was completely out of the way, like the Journal of Experimental and Clinical Assisted Reproduction. So this kind of fraud happens because of the lure of money. Yes, next one, please. Now, you just see, Bohennon did a study about the peer review patterns, and he found that most of the patterns, most of the fraudulent peer review happen in the open access journals, and those that fell into the BIAL's list. BIAL's list means, I'll come to it later. He made a list of these fraudulent journals. They are called the predatory publishers. Next one, please. So the saving grace was PLOS. Yeah, you might have heard of People's Library of Science. People's Library of Science is one of the biggest online publishers, and of course they charge heavily. It's very prestigious, and it's very reliable. It was started by a Nobel laureate, if I'm not mistaken. PLOS won the only journal that focused on ethical problems. That's the only journal. When the Sokarafu sent this paper, PLOS one was one of the very few journals which focused on the ethical problems, like lack of documentation about the treatment of animals. Then PLOS mentioned prerequisites of a proper scientific study before peer review. Okay, so PLOS one rejected the paper 2 weeks upon submission on the basis of scientific quality. So please understand that peer review, despite flaws, does have credibility with some journals. Some journals do take great care to guard their quality. Next one, please. So there are startling results of the faulty. I'm sorry, please read the title as startling results of faulty peer review. Only 106 journals performed any review out of the 304. 70% accepted out of the 106. Most reviews focus exclusively on papers, layout, formatting, and language, nothing about science. Only 36 out of the 304 commented on science. 16 were accepted by editors despite negative reviews. Out of the 36 who commented on science, 16 rejected the arguments of the peer review people and took the paper. Again, money. The results vindicate the BIAL's list of predatory publishers. See, you know, BIAL made a list. He's a librarian he was, I don't know if he's still the librarian of the University of Colorado, Denver. He was making a list of all these publishers who, you know, who publish journals on payment of paid charges. And he found that there's a conflict of interest there because to get more money, they want more papers to be published. So quality becomes secondary, money is primary. So 45% of the DOAJ, that is Digital Online Access Journals, it's a list actually. DOAJ has been prepared by some Netherlands person. And this DOAJ list, out of that 45% publishers that completed the review accepted the paper. Next slide, please. I hope all of you can hear. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Questionable credibility of open access journals. I find it hard to believe. We have been working. See, this is what the DOAJ founder, the Bjorn Sorge, that guy from Netherlands, I think. No, sorry, Sweden. Yeah, yeah. The Swedish person who's made this list finds it difficult to believe, he says. And Jeff Bial, the person I told you who made a list of predatory journals, he's a library scientist at Colorado, I told you, University of Colorado. He says that the number of predatory publishers and predatory journals has continued to escalate at a rapid pace. Despite all these warnings, Bohannon has been able to do nothing. We still have a fraudulent set of papers coming from these journals. Coming, next one. So money is a problem. See, remember, money can be a virtue, but it can as much be a problem. That's why peer review is never paid. Okay, payment creates a conflict of interest. I'm sorry, there are a lot of errors in this slide. I don't know what happened. Publons rewarding in kind is also creating a conflict of interest. Next one. The criticism is that peer review makes publishability susceptible to control by elites and personal jealousy. I have heard this comment from a very, very good researcher I know personally, who has not been very successful in publishing in good journals, but has many of his publications in bioarchives, these open journals with open peer review. And they are brilliant. In fact, a lot of his ideas have come out in a book because of his problems with peer review. And that book was an eye-opener to me. I shall not mention his name, but I gratefully acknowledge his influence on me for thinking differently, for taking up things in a different way. And the impression of reputation can be unfair. As I mention always, he's an Indian. He cannot be doing great. This guy is from South Africa. I don't think he's a great scientist. So these kind of impressions based on the hierarchy of scientific, enterprise and things like that can hurt, especially the people without a past. See, now nobody can really judge the potential of a person until many years have passed. So these errors of judgment come in the way. Peer review has been ineffective in publishing reliable information in clinical trials. You know about it. In fact, I don't want to. There is a lot of other systems that can cause rejection. In fact, it's not only the peer review. There are many, many other factors that cause rejection. It can be inappropriate topic for the journal. It can be inappropriate presentation. Language can be issue. Language is very often the issue for Indians. Remember that. Indians are very good at the scientific, logic, the preparation of the material, the method, all that goes perfectly well. But when it comes to presenting the results, the language is sometimes not very good. That's one more reason why, I still remember one of my students who went to Germany. He could give me a very interesting story about his professor receiving a CV from somebody from India, and he called him and said, "Can I trust this CV?" He showed the CV to him. So this kind of impression is not something you cannot blame them for this impression, because these impressions have been created by us because of our shoddy nature. I have seen people spell their name wrongly, their dates of birth wrongly in CV. So that just shows we are not attentive to details. Indians are particularly poor in written communication. That's because we don't have a history of a very long history of written communication. So there is a lot we can improve. Instead of blaming people, instead of blaming the system and the prejudices that prevail against us, it's important to improve our own performance, which is not very difficult if you're serious about it. Now, I can tell you one thing. In my so many years of teaching career, I have found that people who pay attention to writing, the written communication, they are the ones who are much more successful in terms of academic performance. But of course, academic performance does not guarantee performance in life, because political connections are important. And there, the telephone does much better. It's much more important to talk to people, win their influence. And all. Anyway, it's all going out of the topic. Let's come back. Yeah, come to the topic again. Yeah, next slide, please. Peer review hurdles, some of the personal experiences. I'll tell you. Yeah. The big problem is interdisciplinary themes. So now I have published a lot of interdisciplinary work in which evolution, public health, pharmacology, a bit of cognition. All these have intermingled. The problem is finding somebody who knows both. Suppose you're publishing in a discipline which cuts across cognition and evolution and pharmacology, let's say. Like we had published a paper on the taste perception and its implication for pharmacological properties. It was difficult to get it reviewed. I had to send it to an Indian journal finally who understood Ayurveda better. So it was accepted. But I could not get it published abroad in a bigger journal. It would not have made sense to them because they're not interdisciplinary. They don't understand Ayurveda. And they don't understand even certain things which are even considered Western. Anyway, so interdisciplinary themes are difficult to find reviewers. There are very few referees who have this experience in both topics, and their referees are always in short supply. Let's first accept that. Nobody wants to review papers because they have important things to do. Because people who are important are the ones who referee papers. The people who have a lot of time, who have nothing to do, are the ones who don't do the reviewing. They're all busy people. They're difficult to locate. Sometimes they don't respond in time. They keep the review locked up for months. You get fed up. You change the referee after some time. They don't answer you when you call them or write a mail to them. And the structured peer review formats are, therefore a convenience to overcome any of these things. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, I would just like to explain to you that I have some experience with the scientific reports. I am a member of the editorial board, and they have given a very clear set of instructions for us to consider peer review from various people. So, well, I think these things are not very important. You can go through the slides when you have time. I don't know, how much time do I have? May I know? Can somebody answer me? I can't see the clock here. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Time is up to 12:30.
No, what's the time now? Another 10 minutes, right?
12:11.
Because I need, that's
10
right, but I
past
need questions, right? 10, at least 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, I need to question. So another 5 minutes. So I don't want to go into all these details. I don't think it's important. Important is that the methods must be validated in scientific reports. Nothing about the quality of the paper. Impact is not an issue. If it is valid, if it is scientifically valid, let the people decide its impact. That's a philosophy of scientific reports. Next one, please. It's a prestigious nature. It's the biggest journal in the world. Okay, next one, please. And journals peer review policies, single blind, double blind also sometimes, and essential to, and they always look upon the validity of the report research and the suitability of the journal scope and aims, and the primary research and secondary analysis of primary research are peer reviewed by a competent staff. The importance is competence, expertise, relevant in the relevant methodology, with a good publication record and free of bias. I told you, conflict of interest. Such bias includes, but is not limited to, recent collaboration between reviewers and authors. See, if you have a collaboration, ongoing collaboration or previous collaboration with a person, he is not eligible to be a peer reviewer because you are likely to share a lot of topics. So that's one thing which the scientific reports warns you against. So when you choose a referee, you should choose him independent of that topic, of that institution. Next one, please. Minimum 2 reviewers, and exceptional circumstances, maybe 1. Sometimes you may not find experts, in certain selected areas, you may not find enough experts. Next one, please. And the peer review must address appropriateness of the methods, whether the results are accurate, whether the conclusions are supported by the results. So the conclusion and results must match. And as an editorial board member, you're supposed to check and verify the details of reviewers, especially when they are suggested by the authors. I told you the authors can suggest their own friends as referees to get their paper through. So that's to be prevented. The editorial board member has his responsibility. MS should be reviewed by at least 1 reviewer not suggested by the author. This is a critical point. Suppose the author sends you a list of 3 or 4 referees. See that at least one person outside that list receives the paper for review, because then you get a more independent idea. Next one, please. And a special set of instructions for editorial book reviews. Not very important. Next one, please. Yeah. Now, I'll conclude with a small bit on the peer review in COVID-19 times. Now, COVID-19 is an emergency which the world has never seen until recently. Now, it has also increased the number of submissions to journals. Journals are finding it very difficult to grapple with the inflow. Somebody has called it as an infodemic following the epidemic. It's a pandemic-inspired rush to research. And many of them are poor in design. Study design is bad, inefficient regulation, and poor reporting of results. This is a report by Wiley. In 14 medical journals, the turnaround time came down by 50%. Turnaround time means the submission to publication time. It came down, meaning to say there's a rush to publish. Monash University analyzed 12,682 COVID-19 articles on PubMed, and they found that 8% reviewed and accepted on the day of submission. So what is the meaning of all this? We are in an age where we cannot trust what is published on COVID. So this is one thing I want you to understand. There is this economic impetus, to get published things, without proper referee. All this is bad for science. I think I'll stop with this. I want you to understand the context of things, the value of peer review, the pitfalls, the advantages, the methods to prevent them. I think that's about all, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Unikrishnan sir. Thank you for the informative session regarding the peer review concepts.
I can hear some interruptions.
Now the session is open for discussion for participants. Participants can ask their doubts regarding the topic.
Hello. Sir, actually, you are a reviewer. I had a doubt. Usually journals, will they give articles in a regular basis, like business articles? There is a limit for 1 month, or they will give now and then. Is there any regularity in getting articles for review?
Hello, sir. Can you unmute mic?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I think you couldn't hear me. I'm now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll repeat what I said. See, I am not a referee for Nature Scientific Reports. I am an editorial board member. I don't know whether this is confidential. I think I can disclose it, I suppose. I hope so. Anyway, the issue is that I get papers for reviewing. I send them to the referees. I identify the referees and send it to them. I don't referee much papers. Many papers come to me for referees. I refuse many of them because I just don't have time. I told you this problem of refereeing, it's very painful because you have to go through every line, every word to make a good judgment. And where is the time? Your own papers are waiting there, for correction. And how can I look at somebody else's paper? So these are all issues, and we don't have much secretarial assistance. So when you don't have secretarial assistance, when you don't have any students, when you don't have things to do, and this is highly confidential, you cannot pass it on to somebody else and ask them to do a review and send this report to you. No. See, peer review is hard work. You accept peer review only if the paper is absolutely fascinating. That's my idea. I take up papers which are fascinating, which gives me an opportunity to learn something which I don't know and which really fascinates me. So it's a learning time for me, and that's the way it should be looked upon. because peer review is basically an opportunity to look at the latest developments in your own field or whatever your interested areas of work. Yeah. Have I answered your question? I don't know. See, but I don't think referees are, given regular, kind of monthly tasks and things like that. But generally, they tend to give it to you. They want this thing to be done. I'm sure many of you are referees yourself. You must be knowing that. Okay, that's all. I hope I've answered you. Yeah. Please ask something. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel very
Hello,
sad.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Please. Yeah. Yeah. Please answer.
Sir, cleared many points. So one doubt I have, sir, like nowadays, many of the indexed and as well as the non-indexed journals, even the journals indexed in Thomson Reuters and Clarivate also are charging too much, like more than 10,000. And they may be of very good journals. And how we can publish a work that may not be that much excellent work, but a medium work, what we can conduct, a research work, what we can conduct in our institutions, in our with our limitations. What is the possibility for us to publish our work in some of the, at least a medium level journals? Because all these journals, they are asking for a high cost. So how can
I'm
we...
sorry. I really don't know how to answer your question, Dr. Danish. Is it Danish who has asked that question?
Danish here, sir. Danish here, sir.
Yeah. So I cannot answer that question because I don't own any journals and cannot offer you any discount. So the only way is to improve the quality of your work. You understand? And the quality of your writing. And the quality. See, one very good thing you can do is collaborate with people who are senior to you, who have the experience. Send your papers to
You
them.
mean to say?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes,
improve the quality. See, the thing is, if you are not able to, because there are a lot of free journals also, isn't it? So you go to the free journals and try to, and ask for a fee waiver. We got a paper recently, one very good journal, I forget which one. We got a fee waiver. We made a special request to them and they said fee waiver is okay. We didn't pay. Actually, we were supposed to pay $1,800, I think. Myself, my students, and my colleague from Boston University, it was a pretty good paper. We got a prize also in that Harvard Amrita Symposium also, we got a prize. So that I think not that paper. Sorry, there's another paper. Yeah, that paper was covered in the newspapers also. There also we got some free fee concession. It is possible. They do waiver your page fee if you... See, you should first, credibility is important. They should trust you. They should feel that you have submitted something important for their journal. And that happens better.
Okay.
Yeah, you develop collaborations. Link up with people who are, reputed and things like that. See, remember one thing. See, as Kerala itself is very poor in research. Let's accept that. Our university has produced very little research. So, see, one thing, I'm very sorry to say this, university is not even recognized as a, there's not a single PhD from our university. So these are all things you must try to change. The perceptions will definitely not be good when we cannot give an impression of quality. When the university does not have a single PhD to its credit, how can somebody trust you? Tell me, isn't it? So these are issues which are troubling us. So why should they take our paper? We must change it. Yeah, that's why I'm doing all this by collaborating with people who are bigger than us. Maybe they are my students, but then they are situated in big places. So you team up with people. It really helps. I'm telling you. Okay. And you're all very good. I know that Kerala is very smart. Okay, please continue.
Also, sir, like once we, when we conduct the journal club activities and all, when we evaluate many of the articles that are published in good journals like elsewhere index journals and all, we found many mistakes, very, very simple mistakes might be there. And sometimes we may feel ashamed or we may feel very sad that a better paper even we send to the same journals, they are not accepting, but they are publishing many of the articles with many rubbish things will be there. So we found the situation when the people are presenting, when our students are presenting these articles in the journal clubs. So
I don't know I will not mention anything without examining the actual situation. But I'll agree that it is true that many papers from ours are not bad but get rejected. I told you reputation matters. I just mentioned to you. Bias is important. Gender bias is important. The geographical situation makes a difference. The author names, surnames, it makes a difference. Because I told you, we are not good as a country. We are not doing well. The quality of our science is not much, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Yes.
remember, we make judgments based on where the students come from, don't we? He's an IIT and so he must be good. Don't we make those judgments? See, we are all prone to making judgments based on appearances. No, these are all mistakes. Human, destiny is full of such mistakes. That's the way it is. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Most welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for clarifying the doubts.
Is that all? Does it mean that the questions are finished?
Few questions are there in the chat box.
Chat
What is the
box,
difference
okay.
between H index and I index?
H index is if you have X papers quoted X times or more, then that is your H index is X. That is, if I have 5 papers, all of them quoted 5 times or more, then my H index is 5. I have 31 papers quoted 31 times or more in Google, so my H index is 31. I means I can be any number. I10, I20. If I20 means papers quoted more than 20 times. I10 means papers quoted more than 10 times. So I don't know my I10, I don't know. I have so many papers quoted more than 10 times, so I can check it out. See, please don't look at these numbers. I'm telling you, look at what you have to say. Okay. These numbers and all come automatically. I have never looked at my H index and all that, except when people introduce me, I don't even look at it. It's a waste of time. See, remember, I have seen some great scientists with much lower H index than me. I consider myself nobody in front of them. They're not, see, chasing publications is not science. Remember, science is deeper than that. You have to chase knowledge. It doesn't come only with publication. I am very sorry to say that we have a lot of wrong avenues for earning fame, and not all of them coincide with my philosophy of achievement. Okay, I don't agree with a lot of these things that are
Thank you, sir. So we have
one question.
Could you please describe the terms gold open access journals, green open access journals, and embargo period?
I am sorry. You can send those email to me. Send an email to me, and I'll get them answered. See, please, I'll tell you. All of you, please note down the name of Dr. Yogendra Nayak of Manipal. He's an expert in this. He's the one who sent me many of these papers which I reviewed this time. Just take down his email address if you want. I think I can, or you just email to me or WhatsApp me or something. I'll send you. See, I'm not a kind of an all-time authority on these things. I look at what's important and pick up information here. There. What is it you said? Embargo period? What's that? Hello?
Embargo.
What are the 3 terms?
Sir, gold open access journal, green open access journal, and embargo period.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't understand. Green and gold. I don't know. Gold open access. It's just do a Google. I'm sure you'll get all this.
Okay, sir.
Did you try a Googling? If I had a I think you can get all this. Yeah. Anyway, it's the open access you've understood, right? You've understood open access?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Open access means everybody can read. Free to read, free to publish. Most of the old journals are free to publish, not free to read. Pay to read. Now it is free to read, but pay to publish. Somebody must pay something somewhere, isn't it? That's the philosophy has changed with free journals. Okay.
Sir, in single blind study, the reviewer...
Not study. It's not single blind study. Single blind peer review, I'm saying. Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Single blind, somebody said? It's not single blind study.
Can he contact the the author? Is there any restrictions for that?
What's that? Please, can you repeat your question?
Sir, in the single blind review, the author's identity is known to the reviewer. So can he contact the author in some doubts and all?
Oh, yes, why not? He can always do that. But it may not be ethical. Of course, I might be reviewing my closest friend's paper, for all you know. See, we may be separated by oceans. My closest friend is sitting in California, and the editor hardly knows that he's my friend. He sends it to me. I can ask him directly, hey, did you publish this paper recently? Your paper is very good. I can influence. No, these things do happen. See, remember one thing. Let us accept one thing. We are all human beings, full of human weaknesses, right? So all these human weaknesses will play up. See, look at what's happening. See, you know one thing, the clinical trials, do you think they publish all the truth? A lot of unpleasant things are hidden. Let's accept it. So don't think you're looking at truth. Science is not truth. I started with that statement saying that science is not truth. Science is what is known as truth. That's all. There's a lot of truth which is hidden from science. Because, in fact, it's a quest for knowledge, actually, science. A lot of clinical trials which go wrong are not published at all. So do you see, and that's not true, that what you get as, clinical trial information is all valid. No. A lot of things have gone wrong. What about the Vioxx trials and things like that? A lot of information has been withheld. So please remember, this is a very, very bad, full of conflicts of interest, especially in health science and medicine. It's full of mistakes, a lot of problems.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir, for clarifying the doubts. Shall we wind up, sir?
Yeah, most welcome. Whatever you think.
Okay, sir. As we have reached the concluding part of the session, I would like to thank Dr. Unnikrishnan sir again, as you are joining with us twice, being a part of our seminar in Nirmala College of Pharmacy. Once again, on behalf of Department of Pharmaceutics, Nirmala College of Pharmacy and entire team, we would like to convey our heartful gratitude to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you all the participants.
Thank you. Thanks
okay, sir. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.